Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video, and on today's episode of CN Pooling Opinions, we are going to be taking a look at our latest version 3.6 Evernight, the free done Heng PT, as well as the 2 rerun banners for the Herta as well as Anaxa, right? As you can see from this title, the pun was intended because will this patch allow players to save and therefore keep their stellar jades safe for version 4? Okay, anyways. Overall, we are already gonna be getting DHPT for free on the 15th of October, just like Dr. Ratio. Speaking of which, why are all the men doing the exact same post? But you know, the free men, right? In any case, this also means it will boil down to the Evernight banner as well as the 2 rerun banners for Herta as well as Anaxa, unless we see incredible value for DHPT's Eidolons as well as signature light code. I do want to point out a special mention for this Dance banner, which technically is gonna be on radar with Evernight as well as the Herta's light cone period. Truly the Swiss Army knife of Harmony light cones. This is technically not really a must-have because Sunday, Robin, and Saridra don't really care about DDD that much. It's mainly for Tribi, Runmei, HMC, Sparkle, Ting Yun, as well as Asta. Or if you play Hanya in this day and age, you could run her with Hanya as well. But still, I will personally try to get at least 1 copy. I'm not even talking about S5, but at least 1 copy if your account still has absolutely 0 DDDs, because who knows what harmonies can come out in the future patch updates, especially as we're going to be going into version 4, right? So special mention to my man DDD. Now jumping straight into our very first unit, and that is going to be Evernight. The early access for Evernight is going to be coming out with this Wednesday. After I'm done with this video, I'm literally going to go back and play with Evernight even more on the creator server. So hang on tight before we dive into her full kit very soon. Currently, it is shown that she has a Mimo sprite that is very similar to Pollux, where it dies after an enhanced attack at the 16 stacks as shown in the live stream here, on top of the HP scaling potential buffs as well as the personal damage output. For Kazuri's mains, this is going to be a 9 out of 10, and for the tricycle upgrade, it's going to be an 8 out of 10. Although Evernight's value is going to be the highest alongside Kazuri's, it is only going to be especially high for players that actually skipped out on Tribi, or you started playing on Kazuri's banner, which means you pull for Kazuri's, you did not pull for Tribi, you got yourself the highest scene, and you are lacking that specific slot tree in which after RMC you were using any other previous units to go alongside with Kazuri's. So for this particular case, then Evernight's value is going to be extremely high because it fills in that perfect void, because we have not gotten a Tribi banner for a very long time, at least especially if you skipped out on the Tribi rerun that happened quite recently. So CM believes that Evernight will have exceptional synergy with Kazuri's, but the question is how much more of an upgrade is she compared to Tribi or the potential Cyrene, though that slot is most likely going to be replaced by RMC. So on top of the stack generation of 10% from EV dying as shown from the live stream, she also raises our entire team's total HP due to more allies on the field, because EV is going to be counting as a Mimo sprite, hence more new buff generation for Kazuri's own skill whenever she would use it herself, as well as synergy with Hyacinth's ultimate to further increase our team-wide total HP. Now regardless whether or not she's going to be replacing Tribi or the IMC slot, keep in mind that RMC is ultimately a purely hyper carry support for Kazuri's, while Tribi can improve our team-wide damage output, which has shown to be extremely high with Hyacinth, and now that the brand new Evernight is also going to be showing to do a decent amount of sub DPS damage, it is quite likely that as an entire team, especially with a E1 Tribi, Teep might ultimately be the glue for our highest damaging Kazuri's team. But ultimately, it's going to depend if whether or not RMC is going to be more preferred for the action value advance as well as a true damage buff, or if we're going to be seeing a higher damage numbers from Evernight alongside with Hyacinth as well as Tribi. As you can see over here, Runmei could also still be a very decent and neutral pick, because she does have aura buff, damage buff, res pen, as well as to a certain extent witness break efficiency, even though that's not going to be as important because you actually do want to take hit for your HP scaling DPS. For your other DPSs as a Evernight sub DPS, it is potentially usable with Aglaya due to her being our only other Mimo sprite DPS, but unfortunately Aglaya is going to be attack scaling, so she's not going to be able to make full use of Evernight's HP kit. For a higher scene hyper carry team, Sunday was a pretty good potential for the wheelchair teams to spam our additional action value advance for higher scene as well as in this case Ika, but the 20% crit rate from Sunday was completely wasted on the DPS Hyacinth because she already has 100% crit rate, which allows Evernight as an even better replacement for both a support as well as a sub DPS. And like I mentioned just now, aside from Kazuri's teams and using Evernight as a sub DPS or support, you could also look at Evernight as a main DPS perspective, similar to how Anaxa's original role, it was used as a sub DPS for the Herta, but now you can also use Anaxa as a main DPS. For this particular case, we are going to be talking about the brand new tricycle, wheelchair, 4-chair, whatever chair it's going to be, Evernight, Terrae, as well as Hyacinth, forming a brand new tricycle team comp, because previously Terrae and Hyacinth already has an exceptional amount of synergy because of their interactions with one another, additional AoE hits from Ika, additional HP from Hyacinth, giving team even more additional energy and holding just like synergized by itself. And now Evernight is going to give us even more HP scaling while having area of effect damage, while having additional overall HP for our entire team. So if the previous wheelchair or tricycle team was going to make pretty much any DPS work in our current endgame content, then Terrae Hyacinth synergy could be further improved with Evernight, and at that point, no matter how anti-synergistic that DPS slot is going to be, it doesn't really matter as long as the three of them can synergize with one another well enough. Previously, we have seen Cypher being used as a slot tree alongside any other DPS I've seen from previous videos, and now Evernight could see even more synergy running our brand new Forcicle, or at this point I guess it's a card, a Forcicle team with Evernight, Terrae, Hyacinth, as well as Cypher. For this team, I'll be testing out in the live server. And with that being said though, version 4 is going to be coming very soon at 2 patches later, on top of Cyrene being an extremely likely upgrade over our RMC, just like how Fuke upgraded our HMC. With the HP scaling meta as well as the tricycle team is being extremely strong at this current point of time, version 4 would very likely bring out brand new metas as well as brand new mechanics, leaving the older mechanics at a disadvantage, similar to what happened to Super Break. The tricycle of the day will probably struggle if, let's just say, anti-heal or heal-up mechanics, just like our sandbox we have fought previously, gets implemented for future updates. Now jumping into the next unit, and that is gonna be our Heng PT. At this point, he is a free unit out of 10. I don't think there needs to be a rating over here, but the putting consideration for him specifically would be basically based on his Eidolon or his signature Lycone, both of which we don't really know what they're gonna be doing, so unfortunately we're not gonna be able to give this into a rating. But taking a look at his kit himself, first of all, he's gonna be a sustain, which means this role is honestly a very low competition market, because the only other version 3 sustain so far is gonna be Hyacinth. For Heng, his kit looks like an AoE summon Aventurine with his giant dragon, and the most unique aspect about Heng is that he can give any unit this giant dragon, meaning if you want to give a DPS a summon, Sunday could theoretically gain full value from its action value advance on top of their respective summon buffs, like the 50% damage buff. As shown for the livestream, Anaxa and Final were both used as examples for DHPT in the sustain slot. Specifically, Anaxa might have incredible synergy since he already synergizes so well with Sunday as well as Ceridra. It is almost like DHPT was made perfectly for Anaxa as a sustain, even though Bro was born as a tier 1 DPS and a Herta sim. If Amphoras was an anime, then Anaxa does feel like the main characters like Sensei or his teacher that has ridiculous power and just never bothered trying against the Demon Lord. For Finon, it's questionable if a sustain slot is gonna be able to outdamage the traditional Finon 3+1 sustainless, since that was Finon's whole gimmick, where he takes out your entire team and just gonna be dealing as much damage as possible, while the rest of the team will pretty much not take any damage. It is more likely that DHPT, especially as a free unit given to the casual player base, is going to be able to help this casual player base who are still struggling running a sustainless Finon team while not dealing enough damage running any other sustain, for example Huo or Heng. As I've mentioned before myself, I'm also hoping to see DHPT slot into the same team as my wife. If Acorn is going to be getting new toys like Cypher as well as Rework Silverwolf, then Faceal honestly should deserve some love, with the additional follow-up attack as well as shield generation being extremely similar to Aventurine. Perhaps even a Sunday DHPT Faceal could eliminate the need for a follow-up sub DPS, which has its own host of problems, for example being the wrong element with your main DPS. And with that, we're just gonna jump into the reruns, and first of all, I'm pretty surprised that Castries didn't get a rerun, even though we are gonna be seeing Evernight performing with Castries and synergizing with one another, perhaps during 3.7, where we have the most hyped up unit in HSR history ever, that is gonna be Cyrene. we might probably see a rerun with Caceres and Phylon to really make this potential, I'm guessing, a support shine even brighter, right? A best in stock crazy support with like 2 of the most popular DPS in MiHoYo history. I mean, I don't even know if this is gonna be happening, but if this does happen, then you can say, hey, you know, Uncle P strikes again, right? So that's gonna be that. I digress, but ultimately, both of our current rerun banners for Herta and Anaxa has not as high of a value simply because of opportunity cost for version 3.7 as well as the upcoming version 4. For Herta, she's extremely strong in pure fiction, but similar performance can also be achieved with Terrae, Hyacinth, Caceres, as well as whatever shield buffs are available in the given time frame, which reduces the overall niche that Herta can provide and the need to even use Herta for this specific game mode, right? So we can see over here, previously we have the DOT buffs, we have the skill damage buffs, and we have the ultimate damage buff. So whatever buff is going to be applied in pure fiction, as long as your team are able to use these set buffs, then the need to run Herta in this case, or like the need for her value, is not going to be as high, at least compared to Memory of Chaos, which is going to be a lot more restrictive. And speaking of Memory of Chaos, and in this case Apoc Shadows, Herta's performance has been shown to be suffering, especially outside of area of infect environments, often at times needing Anaxa to deal with the single target or dual target bosses and elites. Vertical investments for an E2 Herta or signature light cone, it can be considered if you really like Herta's playstyle and you are absolutely certain you want to use Herta going into version 4. And one thing about Herta compared to, let's just say, the HP scaling meta is that Herta is not gonna be as impacted by heal lock mechanics and more so the number of enemy targets. So if version 4 sees a resurgence of AoE content, or if Pure Vision comes out, or if the brand new endgame, you know, the DICE game, we might be able to see even more use cases with Herta over there. And we did see a mention of a brand new endgame content by 3.7, so who knows whether or not her niche is going to be fulfilled, right? And at this point, speaking about Anaxa, although bro has been doing nothing but popping off since its launch, even making a solid spot for himself as a main DPS, especially with Saridra and Sunday, Anaxa's performance unfortunately will still suffer without the right supports, namely Sunday. And you know, in this case, if you don't have a Saridra, it is definitely going to feel the impact with the lack thereof. Personally, I think Anaxa's playstyle is one of the most satisfying for me, especially when you just spend Morshu Chicha all the time whenever you run 5 billion damage, Anaxa million damage. And if Herta has a home in pure fiction, then you could argue that Anaxa has a very strong placement in Apoc Shadows with a 7 weakness implant and incredible toughness bar damage. But just like pure fiction, Apoc Shadows has also made a lot of different ways for the player base to reduce the boss toughness bar instead of just directly hitting toughness bar yourself with, for example, high toughness dealing damage units like Anaxa. In this case, you can see Hule, you can say Flame Reaver, or any other mechanics that, as long as you interact with these mechanics like during the bosses or during the mobs or hitting the number of times in face out, the toughness bar will still go down even if your personal toughness bar damage is not going to be as high. So you don't really have to brute force with Anaxa, but more so just getting the right weakness with the weakness implant is going to be very useful over there. So at the end of the day, for your rerun units, both of them, because at the end of the day they're still going to be DPS, their inherent value will always be lower compared to their launch days, especially when, like I mentioned earlier, some big banners are going to be coming up very soon, and I cannot wait to see what version 4 has to offer going forward in the future. So in summary, if you are going to be a Caceres main, Evernight will likely still have definitely value going into your team, but it is more so whether or not you really need this vertical investment using Evernight, because as of right now, Caceres teams especially really got yourself a higher scene, you got yourself the signature icons, the performance is still going to be in the tip-top shape. So whether or not you get Evernight into your team right now, it may or may not give you enough value, especially if you have no problem whatsoever with all of the endgame content. And this is even more so if you already made substantial vertical investments, for example, E1 Terrae, E1 Hyacinth, or maybe even an E2 Caceres, which further decreases the overall value for Evernight, because at this point in time, I always want to look forward to what is going to be coming out going forward in the future. And with Cyrene being the only unit in version 3.7, it is very likely that she's going to be having some absolutely meta-defining mechanics, or even more so in Cyrene's own Eidolons, right? So that's gonna be that. For DHPD, like I mentioned, we just take a look at what his Eidolons, what his Litecoin is gonna be offering. If it works very well with brand new version 4 teams, then maybe we could see what his vertical investments could look like. But by the time it's gonna be coming out, we are already gonna be knowing what is gonna be Cyrene's early access kit from live stream, so there isn't too big of a rush. And for the rerun banners, I personally wouldn't really go for any of them unless you really like their playstyle. For example, you like the Morshu Chi detail, or you like the E2D Herta energy spam, then feel free to go ahead and pull just for your personal enjoyment, right? So with that, we have come to the end of CN's pooling opinions. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I think that version 3.6 is a very straightforward patch and not as much of a pooling pressure, especially compared to the previous couple of versions. And going forward, I'm just looking forward to see how 3.7, new endgame content, new game modes, the TFT, all that kind of stuff is gonna be coming out very new, right? So well, today is going to be big. Join Twitch, join Discord, join the page for all, and we use code for them. All the rest of us. See you guys next time. Take care.